Here we are. Oh, we've already started. We've already gone to day 93 here. 93 days to the opener, part of our Fran Brown 100-day countdown, and now we are about to start our much anticipated, I'd say never duplicated, but it's the third year we're doing it. It's our 12 games in 12 weeks preview of the Syracuse football season, and that is as far out as we are from Syracuse and Tennessee. First meeting between the teams since 2001. Less said about the 98 game in the Dome, the better, the way that one ended. Refs, SEC refs, yeah, we're still looking at you. It's almost 30 years later. We'll get over that one of these days. But right now, let's bring in our next guest. He is Patrick Brown from Go Vols 24/7. Patrick, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Glad to be on, and certainly Tennessee fans would love to talk about that 1998 Syracuse game.
I'm sure.
And the rest of that season, too.
Yeah, hey, I'll give you the rest of the season. Syracuse is still upset about the phantom pass interference penalty that set up the game-winning field goal. We'll get over that one of these decades. It's not going to be this one, Patrick, but one of these days we'll get over it.
Yeah.
All right, so Cuse, Tennessee in the opener. We can save, the nitty-gritty preview in the game for 3 months from now, but it's been kind of a wild off-season for Tennessee, certainly around the Nico Iamaleava stuff. What has that all been like? What was it like to watch that all go down from your perspective?
It was, I've covered Tennessee since 2011 full-time, and so... man, I've seen some things covering this football program. For stretches it was a laughing stock, and also ran, things that don't happen anywhere else have happened at Tennessee. I mean, you can go back to 2017 with that coaching search where it looked like they were going to hire Greg Schiano, and then it went from candidate to candidate, and the AD gets fired after disappearing for half a day. I mean, just anytime I see somebody that's like, wow, this coaching search is crazy, I'm like, no, it's not. So, and a lot of bad football in there. So, but this situation, again, was something that, I don't think, obviously it hadn't happened before at Tennessee, or really anywhere in college football where you have such a high profile situation, because what it effectively amounted to was sort of an NIL standoff, a sort of a contract holdout kind of a deal. With a college football player. So that was sort of, obviously new. NIL is not really new necessarily, and some of these situations have gone on, but they may be played out behind the scenes. And so this was obviously a messy public split that had sort of been kind of bubbling and kind of started back at the end of the winter window. And obviously there's been some back and forth with the narrative from each side trying to get out their version of events, but it was we went from not a lot of drama as there have been sort of as the off seasons have been under Josh Heupel at Tennessee, which is why they started winning, because he's brought stability that was not there with any of his predecessors for the most part, and that has translated to success. And now they've got obviously one of the biggest storylines in all of college football this offseason, and certainly that's shaking things up and left them sort of in a tough situation. I mean, it's say what you will about Nico as a player, but it's tough to have to kind of pivot and change your quarterback midway through the offseason, and that's what they're having to do.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to, when we hear Heupel talk, like right around the spring game, right? He was like, the gist of it was basically like, fine, if you don't want to be here, get out. I mean, he said it a little nicer than that, but like, how has Josh Heupel handled all this? Because, other than this, he's done a fantastic job right here 4 years into his tenure.
Well, I think he probably on some level, I mean, it's disappointing because, obviously I think he had a pretty good relationship with Nico, and I'd probably say that, a lot of things that have been said about Nico maybe aren't accurate, because I don't think he's like a bad kid or has a bad attitude or is greedy or anything like that. I mean, I just think the way I tell people is I think he just got some bad advice from people around him, and maybe the setup around him wasn't what it needed to be because, for whatever reason, it maybe should have been handled differently. Maybe he should have been more open and going to the portal in December, when he would have gotten maybe more closer to the money that he was getting. And certainly maybe they should have handled it better after, during the spring, to where I don't think he's getting what he was getting at Tennessee at UCLA, and he certainly isn't getting what he was maybe asking for. And I do think Tennessee maybe made more of an attempt to keep him than maybe it was mentioned at the time. Maybe not necessarily bumping up the, what they were paying him, but other ways to sort of, help sort of narrow that gap between what his side was wanting and what they were kind of already had on the table. So, but Heupel, I think he sort of said it that day at the spring game is that, no player or no, he put himself there too, that no coach is going to be bigger than Tennessee because, this program has a long history of winning. There's been a lot of great players, a lot of great teams, a lot of great coaches at Tennessee. And there's going to be a lot of those great players and great coaches even after Nico and whenever Heupel isn't the coach there anymore either. So that's sort of, the way he handled it publicly, I thought was really good. He's normally pretty guarded in sort of public speaking media opportunities, but you kind of felt like he was really sort of speaking a little bit more honestly and openly that particular day. But it didn't take long afterwards for him to be like, okay, I'm ready to move on and focus on Joey Aguilar and the team I've got and the guys that are here. So, and that's what he's got to do because you can't let that situation sort of linger and bring you down and distract you from what you need to do to get ready for the season.
Yeah, I'd say a main conversation that we have around here, and we've had around here for many years, involves one of Syracuse's main programs, lacrosse, where it's been, is Syracuse lacrosse back? All right, Tennessee made the playoffs last year. Heupel's done really well. Is Tennessee football back? Does it feel back right now?
Yes and no. I do think they're back to being nationally relevant, where, as I mentioned before, they were sort of a national laughing stock at various points. Obviously, Butch Jones had some good moments here, mid-20 teens, but then just sort of it sort of flamed out there. Obviously, Derek Dooley, even before him, was kind of the same way. Had some great players, but just not a program that was really capable of winning at a high level. And then Jeremy Pruitt comes in, and after that coaching search, which like a fan revolt and all that. And Pruitt comes in and he wins some games, but it ends in more of a clown show with what they were doing that got themselves fired, basically running an unofficial visit ring and doing, hosting kids during the pandemic and just dumb stuff that, they didn't even cover all that well. And now, Heupel's come in and like I said, brought stability, brought success. He's been big on culture since day one, and I think that you've seen that sort of the way his teams have played and the players that he's had. So they're nationally relevant to the point where, like I said, 2022 they win 11 games, beat Alabama in that game that a lot of people probably remember, even if you weren't a fan of either of those sides, either of those teams, I should say. They win 11 games, finished number 6 that season, and then obviously go to the playoff last season. So I don't think they're back. I mean, this is a program that's won a lot of championships. They still haven't been to the SEC championship game since 2007 and haven't won the conference since even, I think going back to that 1998 season. So they're not all the way back, but, they've obviously made up a lot of ground and have become nationally relevant to where they're now sort of a top 15 kind of preseason team. You think, they're to the point now where you almost give them the benefit of the doubt that they'll probably be pretty good, but what's the ceiling? I think Tennessee has sort of learned under Heupel that, you can make up a lot of ground quickly, but some of that last little bit to sort of get over the top has been kind of, maybe the hard part. And I think they figured that out last year when, they go to Georgia late in the season with a chance to, if you win there, maybe you get back to Atlanta in the SEC championship game, but you get out 10-0 and then you get outscored 14-0 in the second half and lose that game. Obviously, you go to Ohio State and you see what the gap is between where you are and what the eventual national champion looks like. So, still got some ground to make up, and obviously the SEC is tough, and you've got to handle your business in some of these other games too. But and that's just sort of where they're at right now. They're not quite back, but they're certainly in a much better situation now than they were when Josh Heupel took over. I guess it's been 4 years now.
Patrick Brown, Goal Falls 24/7 is with us. We're doing our 12 games in 12 weeks preview of the Orange football season. Cuse, Tennessee, the opener down in Atlanta, August 30th. The state of the Tennessee athletic department, and this is kind of like an SEC thing right now, like the whole conference is rising in everything. Just saw Danny White was named AD of the year by somebody last week. Rick Barnes has done a great job with hoops, watching Tennessee in the softball World Series right now with their pitcher absolutely dealing. What is the just general vibes of Tennessee athletics at the moment?
I think fans are just enjoying the ride. I mean, baseball team is about to start its defense of its national title in the regionals tomorrow. You mentioned two straight Elite Eight appearances. I know Syracuse, that's a big basketball fan base up there. Tennessee is not a lot of basketball history. They're, three of their elite, they've only made the Elite Eight 3 times, and 2 of them in the last 2 years. Certainly they sort of, I don't say lucked into Rick Barnes, but they were just sort of there when he parted ways with Texas, and boy, that's really worked out. He's been really incredible for that program as well. And he and Tony Vitello, the baseball coach, are really beloved around here. I think Heupel is sort of in the same vein for what he's done in bringing sort of Tennessee football back to credibility. And I think they had all of their 20 varsity sports make the postseason last year. I think they've got a chance to do it this year. They were 3rd in the Directors' Cup standings maybe it was 2 years ago. I think it might have been last year, but I mean, they've sort of taken on this like everything school moniker. And a lot of places claim that. Mm-hmm. But certainly with the way Tennessee has won and won at a high level with some of its most high-profile programs, we'll throw the women's basketball program in there too. I mean, can't mention Tennessee without, Pat Summitt and what she did for the sport and basketball in general, and certainly the state of Tennessee and this area down here as well. That program is on the upswing too with Kim Caldwell, Danny White's hire. A year ago, her first season, they get back to the Sweet 16 and have had a pretty good offseason as well. So, yeah, it's been a great time to be a Tennessee fan. I know I mentioned earlier that the football program had its issues, and maybe that wasn't a great time to be a Tennessee fan. They have obviously a very passionate fan base, very active on social media, but they supported a lot of teams and coaches that didn't win and didn't play well and didn't perform well, and they're certainly enjoying a lot of winning lately, even if they've only got, I guess, the one national title to show for it. They still have enjoyed the winning, and they're hoping to see more of it starting tomorrow with baseball. Obviously, even right now with softball, as you mentioned, and certainly the football season as well.
Apologies, I did immediately jinx the softball team. They gave up I think I said she was pitching great, and like 4 seconds later, she gave up a 3-run walk-off jack for Oklahoma to win the first game there. So that went immediately wrong for the Vols. All right, last thing here, Patrick, before we let you go, and I'm sure we'll catch up when we get closer to the season, the actual game, and the X's and O's and all that. Like the SEC's running things right now. It feels like in college sports, and we see the SEC meetings going on and everything Greg Sankey has said. When you look at that from a Tennessee perspective, what has this been like to be, in the league that in many ways is calling the shots right now?
Well, in college football, you can make a case that the Big Ten is the one calling the shots. They've got the last 2 national titles. So, but yeah, I mean, this spring meeting this week, it seems like it's been a lot of talk, not a lot of action necessarily. A lot of talk about how they want to structure the playoff and. Is the SEC going to go to 8 or 9? They're going to stay at 8 conference games like they have been, or are they going to go to 9? None of the schedules have been set past this season. I think the league is sort of waiting on what's going to happen with the playoff, because I think there's a split between the athletic directors want to go to 9 games for the extra money that they get from ESPN, but they also don't want to do that unless they have automatic qualifying spots, whereas the coaches can look at last year and say, hey, if it would have been a 16-team playoff where it's seeded straight up and you just have the 5 conference champion qualifiers and then the next best 11, the SEC would have gotten 6 teams in. So I think that's why, I think that's how they're looking at it. So they're waiting to see what the playoff does. Obviously, these conferences all got to get on the same page. I'm sort of a cynic, so I'm thinking that the leaders of college football aren't going to necessarily get it right. I would probably say you should just have the 5 best conference champions and then the next best teams and seed them how they ranked. Certainly, I think Tennessee was one of the big losers in how sort of the flawed seeding system was last year, right? Because they were ranked, 7th, and they ended up as the 9th seed, had to go play at Ohio State, whereas if they had just seeded it by they were ranked, they would have opened up with SMU at home. And Tennessee's been really good at home under Josh Heupel. So, I mean, it's sort of like March Madness now, where with the expanded playoff to 12, 16 teams, however it is, your draw is going to matter. And certainly Tennessee got a tough draw. That was a tough night for the program to get beat the way they did at Ohio State. And, I think Oregon, too, they got a tough draw out of that as well, being the 1 seed and then having to play Ohio State in the next round. So they they've got to sort of figure this out. Certainly, the ACC and Greg Sankey, have a lot of power in the realm of college sports, but it's tough to get everybody aligned because everybody's got their own interests to worry about. And, for all the stuff that's going on away from the field and court, and courts in college sports, the product seems to be doing great ratings, a lot of attention. So a lot of anticipation for the games and stuff when we get to the fall. So it's that time of year where a lot of the stuff that is kind of on the side is sort of dominating the headlines, but I can speak for myself, and you're just ready for the season to get here and the games to start being played and things to go that way.
Yep, 93 days, Patrick, until Syracuse and Tennessee
We'll be here before we know
get on the field. All right, man. Really appreciate the time today. I'm sure we'll check in with you in 90 days or so. We'll reach out, but appreciate the early preview here on the Vols.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, there he is, Patrick Brown. Go Vols 24/7. He is the Mike McAllister of Tennessee. Yes, as both work for 24/7 Sports. So I'll take a break. 411 Jordan next. Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio.